Sorry, I accidentally hit print on the tree board packet. Okay. So we're ready to start?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I apologize for not being there. My wife broke her ankle, so I've kind of been hanging around the home a little more. So in case she needs help, but so if I have to run out, I'll let you know. But it should be okay. Let's start the tree board meeting for Monday, July 10th, 2023. I guess we will just say our name. It looks like Mike Jackson is not available, and is Tanya on the line?
I don't see her.
Okay.
She said she'd be here tonight, but I don't see her here.
Okay. And I can't remember our newest. Oh, looks like he just walked in. So if you guys just want to say your name and say here.
Brody Koval here. Apologies for the delay.
No problem.
Perfect.
Bryce is here. Are we going in order?
Go ahead.
Hannah's here.
And Jim Cedar. Is it being recorded?
It is being recorded, yes.
Great. Any changes to the agenda tonight?
Any changes? No.
No? Okay. Has everybody read through the minutes from March 13th, 2023?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Should we make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from March 13, 2023?
So moved.
Okay, who moved?
Seconded.
Seconded, okay.
Jim. Okay, Brody seconded.
Okay, perfect. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes from March 13th, 2023, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, say nay. No nays. All right, we approve the meeting minutes on March 13th. Wait, it says March 13th, but the meeting minutes are from. Okay. Tree board member reports. I don't have anything to report. Does anybody else want to report anything?
A question.
Go for
So,
it.
this new development off Little Rock Road off 77th Way, they've got some street trees planted and some of them are starting to die from lack of irrigation. So I think they're responsible for replacing them if they die, but I'm just wondering what the city's role is in making sure that they're surviving in a proper manner, because they're struggling.
Little Rock Road and what was the intersection?
77th Way, it's right across from the Black Hills High School entrance.
My memory is that that's not city property.
I'd have to check the street tree list to see if they are city-owned street trees. If they are privately installed and owned, maintained street trees, they have a 3-year bond. It's been more than 3 years since they, okay, then I'll flag that for community development to enforce.
It's my understanding that that's county.
I'll check with community development just in case.
Yeah, it's obviously frustrating to see all that energy and time go into planting trees and having them fail so soon.
The locusts, they're planting.
These were, did you tulip poplars, they're
Okay. Yeah, they're Rhododendron tulipifera. And they have some Shademaster locusts, which I'm glad to see.
Okay.
As a,
Further back in the development?
yeah, as a low maintenance, I like to see them in parking lots. I don't know why we're not planting more of them, because there's no leaf litter of significance and they're basically horizontal. So they create a lot of semi-shade without taking up much, footprint.
I've never liked the honey locust because of the leaves being so small. They like collect in corners and you can't get rid of them. I've always found it frustrating to maintain that.
Okay.
Or you're a big league maple man, then it sounds like.
That's right.
Which,
No, but yeah, there's got to be some sort of balance. But yeah, I had a honey locust at one of my houses and it was a nightmare.
I would just report that I'm working on more possible heritage trees. I've been working on the Fred Meyer locust and Gary Oaks, and we talked with their legal department. They claimed that that strip of land was not theirs. In doing more research, it appears that the land actually is owned by Panda Express. I've talked with the facilities manager and he seems quite willing to authorize making those trees heritage trees. So it's just taken some time to track down the ownership, but I think we'll be able to succeed on that. I probably have, there's a citizen in Tumwater who's an advocate for Gary Oaks, and she sent me a list of 3 or 4 or 5 more oak trees that she'd like to see that are on almost, yeah, all of them I think are on public space, including what's called Trosper Lake Park, which is the undeveloped property behind the middle school on Little Rock Road. So there are native trees that have been there, but it's scheduled to be developed by the city into what's called Trosper Park. So I'm talking through Alyssa with the Parks Director about retaining those Gary Oaks when that property is developed, probably in 2027. That's all I think I have to report on. Thank you.
I'd like to note that Tanya is emailing me. She's trying to sign in. She's having technical difficulties. And for the agenda to reflect, or the minutes to reflect that Mike has joined us as well. If I'm looking at my phone, I'm trying to help Tanya sign in.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything they want to report?
I have some reports. I have an unfortunate, not unfortunate, a lot, sorry, to report for coordinator/manager's report, if I may. Here. You all likely received hopefully received the memo from Brad about the pause on the urban forestry related amendments, code amendments, until we figure out exactly how the Wildland Urban Interface Code will affect it. In there, he outlines kind of the potential issues for the way in which the code was going, and how that is undermines not the right word, because we don't want people to have fire risk, but that it complicates the direction that we were going. So community development is leading the charge of really delving into that code, speaking with other cities and counties, with the Department of Ecology, because critical areas aren't given an exemption in this either. There's a couple of things that we need to resolve to really figure out where do we go from here. We will be joining with other jurisdictions to try and figure that out, and as soon as that is figured out, we'll reconvene and continue working on those code amendments, but unfortunately there's a pause because this is a wrench.
Having time to read any detail. Is this coming from the state or federal government?
It's international building code that was adopted as a WAC that requires in the wildland urban interface and intermix that we have kind of a larger amount of defensible space, which can include trees, but only if they're like meticulously maintained. Also limits the amount that canopies can touch. So the grove issue and wildlife corridors are kind of in question. There's an unfortunate number of things that the community and you all wanted that are being put into question if we can do this. This is a requirement. We have to adopt this. No one's happy about it. That helps.
As I read this, it requires that virtually every residential, industrial, whatever, there be 10 feet between every building and a tree. And that there be 10 feet between every tree.
And the wildlife corridors are in question. Also, in some parts of the city, it could be that the defensible space for meticulously watered and so the irrigation improvements that we made to the landscaping code, for instance, trees touching, trees being there that aren't properly maintained according to the WUI code, as we're calling it, up to sometimes 100 feet from a
Building.
structure, excluding agricultural structures. So if lots are only X size, but they can't be 10 feet from another building or that building, but we want them to have tree credits up to a certain amount, how do we calculate that? Is a question that we need to answer. We had made progress in the groves and wildlife corridors being included. Can they be included? Because our definition of a significant tree, 6 inches CVH or GSH or more, is heavy fuel.
So it would eliminate trees on most properties
Those properties.
in city limits.
So for there's a map that is linked in the memo. 3/4 of the city is in this interface or intermix code. The urban core of the city is gray, so a color that that this doesn't apply to. But then we have the equity question of, do we have higher requirements for an area that's not as at risk? And is that equitable in terms of the finances that might be available for people to do? We're going to be asking more of people in areas that also happen to coincide with maybe some lower income areas, and how we approach that. Also, I mean, from climate perspective, this is going to, yes, reduce fire risk to property, but also make our environment hotter. Very complicated. All of the jurisdictions are still trying to make sense of it. We might be one of the first in this area to actually be looking at it this closely because it coincided with us working on this. But we are required to adopt it by October, this code. So we're going to try to figure it out, see if there are any allowances that we can have, any different interpretations that we can have that allow us to still move forward with the proposals that are supported by the community. But
And is it retroactive?
our building officials' interpretation is yes.
So you'd have to clear cut the city.
If the code official goes and says that this is not being kept to the standards that it should be to maintain defensible space.
Crazy.
It's a wrench.
I think Brad says 95% of the city would be affected. I think you said 75.
About 75. At least the last time I read his memo, this is the fourth version of the memo that I read from Brad. A large part of the city is affected.
Is there as far as like if property is irrigated, is there kind of a workaround?
Yeah, so
It must
Yes.
be irrigated.
it must be. So like our approach for the landscaping code of reducing the mandatory permanent irrigation and trying to get away from lawns or having other more drought tolerant is species planted is now maybe not possible. Been brought up that we might not even have the supply of water to irrigate everybody all the time to these standards. There's a lot of issues, not only with buildings and developments, but also in terms of stormwater, what this means for stormwater, what this means for habitat, what this means for water conservation, water supply. So just give us some, we're gonna do our best to do right by you and the stakeholders, what you wanted for the code, and as soon as we figure this out and we figure out a path to do as much as what we were working on, as possible, we'll bring it back, but, community development is leading the charge of figuring this out, and seeing if there's any wiggle room.
Does this have impact on current proposed developments?
Not
yet,
until,
sir.
not until, it's adopted,
Until October.
yeah. But then there's the retroactive part.
But you're not putting a moratorium on development until this gets resolved?
Not to the best of my knowledge, no. So that was the least fun of my updates. I have some fun, some not fun. Arbor Day, Parks Department has expressed to me that they want to work with us for the Arbor Day, Earth Day commingled celebration, like every year in the future if they can. So instead of it being a question every year, I just wanted to say that they welcome us. They like having the events together, and if we would like to continue having the joint event, can.
I think that's a good idea.
I had 4 interns from Evergreen last quarter. I have another one this quarter, and I printed 1 copy of this. I can pass it around, but 2 of them worked on plant-related things. 1 intern cross-referenced our approved street tree list as it was as a draft, with some resources and research that they did about heat and hardiness vulnerability for climate change. They cross-referenced the list of our approved street trees and kind of said if it was a good choice moving forward into the future for heat or hardiness or not, to help make sure that the list is good for the future. I can pass this around if you'd like. I can also give it to you all virtually if you would like. And then we had another intern. We have funding in the water and stormwater funds to put a demonstration garden over here, that big grass lot where the memorial tree for 9/11 is. So I had an intern chip away at that concept for the first time. The funding is to be a demonstration garden for water conservation and bioremediation. So they put together some suggestions of different aspects of how we could show water conservation practices, how we could show bioremediation, different species that they want to use. We might not go with that exact design. I think we want a couple more curved edges, but there. And my intern this quarter from Evergreen is going to be interviewing the top 10 residential water consumers to investigate why they use so much water, for what purpose. We have assumptions, but we don't know that those are true. So they're doing a qualitative, open-ended interview process that they're determining the methods and doing research right now on what methods for data collection and data analysis. They'll do the interviews remotely, and hopefully we get some insightful information instead of just working on our own assumptions. From that, either they, if they have time, or we will put together a more tailored water conservation messaging campaign based on the findings that we get. That's the intern stuff.
This is assuming the homeowners are amenable to being discussed.
Yes, so because it's not like university research, it's for the city, it's easier to do. But if they want to go forward and do a graduate program and do this in more depth, this the whole thing. But yes, we have a list of the top 10. If the top 5 of 10 don't want to be interviewed, then we'll go to the top 15 and kind of see if we can get a sample size of 10, not for any particular reason, just I don't have them for that much time. And any insight is appreciated so that we can figure out exactly why those homeowners are using so much water.
Can I ask a question about, I believe we put an annual review of the street tree list on our calendar. Is that still on our calendar? Do you remember when?
Yeah, so right now it is in flux because of the update. We were updating the list along with the ordinance and the plan. So it was under my impression that we were kind of doing it when the consultant came up with the list and provided that information to you. because otherwise, right now, you would be reviewing what's on the website right now, but this other work has been being done that you're also involved with, so it's kind of a weird place. But whenever we have updates on the list, that are proposed to move forward, I will be bringing them to you all.
I'm backtracking, since I have this in front of me. It might be useful to have some definitions.
So the smaller sheet on the back,
Yeah, I see those, but for like hardiness, I'm curious what exactly was meant by hardiness when they said, yes, it's
for pests.
for pets.
For
Is
pets.
that noted here somewhere?
It should be in the key on the back, but if it isn't, then I can send you the research that they based it off of.
Can you send those out too? Or
Yep.
did we get those in our packet?
I did not put them in the packet because I've been swamped and I just printed them today.
Okay,
I will
Okay.
send them out.
Perfect. That'd be great.
I will send the intern deliverables. That intern that did that street tree work it was great because I don't have as much time as I would like to research the impacts of the trees that we have here with different climate change impacts. They found a really helpful study on urban trees of Puget Sound done by some nonprofit in the Seattle area that was done recently, and that's the main source for what they included there. They had a 2-page kind of ranking sheet, and then they had a 50-page report, and I'm happy to send those as well in addition to their work there.
Did they include the National Wildlife Foundation's recommended plants that's on the web?
They cross-referenced our existing list, or the list as it was proposed most recently by the consultant. They didn't propose additional trees. I only had them for so many hours a week.
Sure. National Wildlife Foundation, you put in your zip code, it'll give you native plants recommended for your area. So it's widely used, quite easy to use. And I think we should, incorporate that, look at that when we review the street tree, preferred group street trees.
I do know that that version there is the most up-to-date proposed street tree list. It does include native trees for the first time. They're not proposed to be immediately adjacent to sidewalks, though. They're in like unimproved right-of-way, but there are some in there. I was adamant.
Great, thank you.
Would there be value in inviting your interns to our next meeting to present what they're working on?
I could ask, so I have one right now,
Okay.
Which happens to be the one that did the street tree work and is now doing the interviews, same person. I can ask. They're doing this summer internship remotely. They're in Texas, so if the time zone is not too much of a piece of trouble for them, I will ask them if they want to come to the next one, especially
Yeah,
since it's not a joint meeting.
Right, and it's not only the information sharing, but the professional development opportunity.
I had offered to all 4 interns from last quarter to come and present, but
They didn't take you up on
not yet.
it?
But I know that actually the other intern from Evergreen in that same cohort was working with you and DNR.
He's my intern, yeah.
Small world. So, I didn't say, mention the maintenance of this demonstration.
Not gonna do grid like that, I can say that.
No, I mean, just whatever it is, like, is there funding or who's gonna maintain the garden?
The Parks Department, so we're talking with them throughout the process and making sure that they have buy-in for whatever demonstration garden goes over there. Apparently that plot of grass uses more water than any other plot of grass outside of athletic fields, so they're eager for something else to be
Keep
there.
the fire department from catching on fire.
Physical space. We won't be doing anything unless they're okay with it. And we're making sure that, like, the drip line specifically that we use is the one that they prefer to use and have the parts to repair and whatnot. So getting into the nitty-gritty of it and making sure that we have their blessing before we move forward.
In this, there's no reference to wildlife habitat value. That wasn't considered as a criteria.
It wasn't part of their assignment. I hope that it is part of our overall approach for street trees. I know I've shared my spreadsheet with you all before about the different wildlife habitat features, especially tied to the NWS program, for native plants that are available and, or not only available, but like can grow here. And I have that down to like the species of moth larvae that like are happy about this particular like long list of all the invertebrates that are happy, and if it provides nuts and seeds that are especially liked by this bird over this bird, and I have that information.
Great.
Granted, most of those are not native, so I don't have that information for all of the interesting cultivars or,
And, yeah, Wildlife Federation wouldn't have that either.
I don't know how I would.
Yeah.
That would be a wonderful suggestion to make if this individual presents to us, Jim.
Yeah.
You can ask them the hard questions.
Well, and it looks like heat and hardiness, I'm seeing a lot of not suitables on our current list, which is, a little sad. I mean, that, we're saying we recommend this, they're saying it's not a good recommendation.
I think the list is longer right now, but it might get dwindled for future impacts, which is something that's in the urban forestry management plan that we want to look at the actual lifespan of the tree, considering different climate change impacts or different pests. I'm almost done with my update. Jim had asked me to give you all an update on the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. This is the other part of my job. I can hand this around, but it's nice and thick. There is a section on agriculture, prairies, and forests. There are 4 actions related to that. There's some related to agriculture, but one page on prairies and forests. There's reforestation and afforestation program, municipal canopy, tree canopy preservation, and prairie preservation are the actions. This past month, the 3 arms of the body that implement this, which is there's an elected official body made up of 1 elected official from the 4 jurisdictions, Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, Thurston County. There's a community advisory work group made up of up to 15 community members. Sarah, who is one of the attendees here, was also present at the retreat from a representative from Puget Sound Energy, Thurston Conservation District. The Squaxin Island Tribe is also one of the members of the Climate Advisory or Community Advisory Work Group, and then the staff team, which is 1 member from each of the 4 jurisdictions that are their climate staff. We met, tried to identify 1 regional priority. There were some suggested priorities related to trees and forests, and 2 ended up getting, we had 1 major thing for staff and everybody to work on that was agreed upon, and then 2 tree-related for specifically the executive committee or those elected officials to champion and move forward with. One of them was rural tree canopy targets, in which the target outcomes are once Thurston County completes its tree canopy assessment, the data will be analyzed to help identify forested areas at high risk of conversion and opportunities for conservation and restoration. The data will be applied to set targets for tree canopy at the regional level, focusing on rural Thurston County where the majority of the carbon sequestration takes place. That's going to be led by the county, my counterpart there, Rebecca Harvey, and Commissioner Ty Menser. The other action that was advanced for a regional focus in 2024 is state forest lands management advocacy, which is their target outcomes. There were 4 proposed and 2 that they decided to move forward with. Legacy forest protection, including a dedicated funding source for purchasing replacement stands of younger trees, and DNR enrolling more of its land in carbon project. So that would be the elected officials working with DNR and other agencies, mostly DNR, to try to advance those on a regional level. That's the 2 executive committee champion things, so that'll be the elected official with very minimal staff involvement that they chose to move forward with. The other ones are related to buildings and energy, which I can tell you about if you want, but I know I've already been talking for quite a while, and I still have one other update. Any questions on that?
Can we get an electronic copy of that?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm curious if maybe Brody, you know, do the mills and the lumber industry have any input in this climate mitigation task force?
So for the climate advisory work group or the community advisory work group, we have dedicated the agency spots, which there's, I think, 4 of, which is PSC, Thurston Conservation District, Inner City Transit, and a tribal seat for any of the tribes, but it's currently held by Squaxin Island Tribe member. And then the other slots are kind of allocated to different stakeholder groups that the elected official committee a year or two ago wanted to make sure were represented. So we have people from the building industry, from realtors, from transportation, so on and so forth. I don't have them all memorized, but there is one for rural lands or agriculture, but there is no forest slot, no forestry slot, no tree-related slot. I have been asked by the Thurston Climate Mitigation Team's tree group to advocate for there to be one of those slots be for forests, someone that is a stakeholder for forests. I've proposed that, and we'll see where it goes. But no, there isn't a dedicated seat at the table for anyone.
Forestry
in
industry.
right now, yeah.
My business that I own, was actually approached about this to be represented, and we had to decline due to some time constraints, but I think they're trying.
And we do have 2 vacant slots right now. The staff team, myself and the other 3 jurisdiction climate staff, we're working on putting together the recruitment strategy. The members of that work group right now only have a 1-year term, which is coming up soon, because when we initially did the recruitment, we didn't include any demographic questions, and we have 2 slots for frontline community members, and they were not filled because of the way that we did recruitment. So we only have a 1-year term, which is coming up for re-recruitment, reappointment, and 2 vacancies, and that information will be released in the coming months. And maybe it'll have a forestry slot. I'm advocating for it because I hear that people want it.
Looking at you, Mike.
Yeah, right.
And my last update, I'm sorry, I realized that I've taken up quite a bit of time here, sorry. We didn't meet last month, and I've been busy, and people have been busy, so, has any of you noticed the Meeker Gary Oak on Old Highway 99 lost a nice big limb?
Yes.
So, it's in city right of way. We've been working with Kevin McFarland to investigate, why the limb fell and the overall health of the tree. We're now at the point where we're getting a level 3 assessment using sonic tomography. They did a drone study. Yeah, we're now ultrasounding the tree, to make sure that it's, in good health.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a bit of decay that was identified, when the forester went and did their initial inspection. So we're, doing everything we can to ensure that the tree can remain and stay healthy. But there's always the possible result that it may not be safe.
Who's doing the consulting work?
Garland, and I have their proposal for their most recent round of inspections for the sonic tomography there.
One thing interesting on that oak is that it only took a decade, as soon as that wall went in,
Yeah.
that car that went over the wall and hit the tree, that was a big hole.
Hmm.
And by gosh, that's almost closed.
Huh.
It took about 10 years.
Yeah. There are Gary Oaks across the street, on private property, and I've got them on my list. So there are more.
Yeah, there's a number of nice ones.
Yeah.
Well, I know that one's especially important to folks
Yeah.
here. It's not only a heritage tree, it's also a historic tree, and we have records, I don't know who from, stating that it was a landmark in the Oregon Trail.
Right.
So it's important for many reasons. And the city is gonna do everything we can to not have to remove it if it's.
Well, the consultant is actually from Tree Solutions out of Seattle. It's like Kevin's contracting with them.
I'm just being informed of this going on, and
On that, did I notice that the Walmart Gary Oak root collar excavation happened?
Kevin was there for that, and the trimming also happened, so. Now then, the recommended maintenance for that tree has been completed. I am now done with my updates. Thank you, sorry.
Thank you.
I'm assuming there's no public
We have
comment
two
then?
We have two members of the public, Jerome and Sarah. If either of you would like to speak, would you please virtually raise your hand? I think there's an option for that. Okay. Neither raised their hands, Trent.
Okay. Then we will move on to the urban forestry management plan briefing. Or did you already do that?
Nope, I'm sorry. In your tree board packet, I included the entire draft grant agreement, which we've now executed with DNR, but, page 25 of 34, Exhibit B, scope of work, it's single page. It's really what I wanted you to look at, but I wanted to make sure you had the contract just in case. I told you last meeting that we were awarded a grant from DNR, Urban and Community Forestry Program for $40,000. We're matching it with $20,000 from the tree fund to do this work, which accomplishes 6 actions from the Urban Forestry Management Plan in 1. So you'll see here the scope of work. We will update the existing tree inventory data set because it lacks some data points that DNR is now requiring. Also, it's my understanding that some trees may have been removed or replaced since the 2018, but not updated. And that I will likely need volunteer help, and I'd love it if you all would help or recruit other help to kind of ground truth to the street tree inventory. If there are trees that are different, just basically if the species is the same, if it's not, if it's still there. We'll have a consultant. We did an RFP. We selected a consultant. We're now going to start with the contracting here soon. I'm not 100% familiar with all of the procurement rules for Washington State, so I'm not sure if I can tell you who they are or not. But we had one respondent. So first task here is updating the street tree inventory. Second one is do a point-based tree inventory of basically all other city properties that aren't heavily forested. And then do a sample-based approach inventory for all of those more heavily forested spaces. So like Tumwater Hills. The golf course was excluded from the scope from the consultant. No one wants to get pelted with golf balls. They couldn't do it within the budget, so the golf course is excluded from the scope. That's not to say that I can't give a future person a hard hat and follow safety rules.
Bulletproof vest.
Yeah, and, or go on a day when it might be closed. That does happen, and schedule it in that way. We're not going to forget the golf course, but it's not in the scope for right now.
Is there a mechanism yet for the city to maintain the inventory as, what do you call it, standard work procedure?
We update it from, not from our own maintenance, but from new developments, yes. So when new developments put in new trees or when we plant new trees, yes. But there's not a connection in our work order system to GIS yet. And city's getting a new system that we're phasing over in the next like 2 years that would allow that, but we're not there yet. So it's an unfortunate lag.
For tree removal wouldn't be
Right.
entered into the,
Tree removal won't be entered.
won't be updated.
But I do request for the Arbor Day Tree City evidence of the number of trees that have been removed. So it wouldn't be out of the question for me to ask staff to not only take note of the number of trees, but the species and where. And the exact location probably won't happen. But to have more information on that, I can ask for that.
At our Arbor Day celebration, I talked with one of the city staff who seemed to have records that he just personally kept of that sort of stuff. And has anything come of that?
I haven't,
Access to, okay.
I don't have access to it, but that doesn't mean that I can't get access to it and that there might be more data that they keep than I know about. I know with the streets department that they have a lot going on and aren't currently keeping record of that because it's not automatic within their work order system.
And when new developments are landscaped, I know there's a landscape plan that's approved by the city. I assume that there's someone who confirms that as built, I mean, that goes out and says, yes, those same trees that were on the plan were actually put in the ground.
Yes, but this inventory is only for trees on city property.
Right, so parkways,
We're not maintaining it, it's not in our street tree inventory.
and you don't maintain it for 3 years because that's the responsibility of the developer?
If the developer put it in, it's their responsibility for the lifetime of the tree. They have a
Lifetime.
bond for 3 years. If the trees die within 3 years of them doing it, then they have penalties, but outside of the 3 years, then
But if it's a public road, tree on the parkway, that's not the city's responsibility?
if the city did not install the street tree, it is not the city's responsibility to maintain. And it's also not in our inventory,
Is that code?
which is up for changes, with
After
Ohio
October.
land and- Oh, you can still come up with the changes in between now and then, just we can't confirm that anything can actually stay until that's figured out.
So if the trees are planted on the city right of way, even though they're between the sidewalk and the road,
If the city owns that right away and installed the trees, then we are maintaining them.
But if we didn't install them, but we approved the plan to install them,
And
The
it's the
city-
adjacent property owner or the HOA that installed them, their
responsible,
responsibility.
but they're not in the city's inventory. So that's why we did the inventory 4 years ago, is because there was no record of what was out there.
Now we have a very good record that could use some updating and making sure that it's up to snuff for the state's data collection, and then we'll add our other properties that aren't the right of way.
But we have as-built, confirmed plans that say what was planted,
For private development,
new developments.
yes, because we're approving them, or not.
So at some point, somebody could go through those and add those to the inventory.
I don't know if that, if we have the capacity to do that.
Sounds like an
Intern.
It'd be many semesters, I imagine, of going through the paper documents just to do that. So the other aspect of the scope of work for this grant is that we put together a community and urban forest maintenance report. So there were actions in the plan to have, maintenance prioritization, cost estimates for that, a schedule of maintenance for those trees that the city owns. There's 3 additional parts of this, scope that were added, that I added, is I want to know what methodology they used and have that part of the report, the methodology and report. The iTree analysis, would be helpful in us making the connection between the stormwater fund and urban forestry efforts, because that will quantify the amount of stormwater uptake that the trees in the different spaces contribute. I've been tasked with finding that nexus between stormwater and trees so that we can have more available funding. So, helpful for that. It'd also give us an estimate of carbon sequestration for each particular park and tree. It'll be very helpful. One of my interns last quarter that I didn't tell you about, did a point-based inventory, of the lot between us and the next building over, and did a how-to guide for future interns to do, iTree eco analysis. So, and then they ran the eco analysis for that. I never received that, but they did it, and I saw it when they did a presentation.
But you need to get it back.
Yeah, I need to get that, and that would help so that the consultant doesn't have to do that property.
One block then.
Yeah, one block done. So we'll have the cost estimates for the maintenance work and a schedule so that we can start actually putting that in the budget and have good solid numbers for that so that we can have enough money to do the maintenance that we need. And one of the reasons why we're matching 20,000 instead of 40,000 is because part of this work will also be the consultant developing a planting strategy or priority planting areas for canopy equity to make sure that we have higher canopy than we do now in areas that are disadvantaged or overburdened in some way. So we'll have a strategy for increasing canopy in those areas by having those priority planting areas. And of course, We would work with any communities and neighborhoods before we plant any trees, because as I was just explaining, when we plant them in the right of way or on other, well, one, people plant them on their own property if they feel like they can maintain them. And if we plant them in the right of way, it's now, the onus is on them to maintain it. So we want to make sure we have, blessing for that. Or,
The city plants it, it's the owner's, property owner's
so
responsibility.
if we had an overarching program for the city to plant trees in an area, then we would, if you recall, when I gave you that, different incentives document of different opportunities. So some of those were to plant trees in right of way, but not the city plant them. The city gives trees and the people plant them in the right of way, and then they maintain them. There's different methods to do this. We'll know where and how many trees this will be, and if, and an estimate cost for maintenance. And if the city can take that on, then yes. If not, it'll be an optional program that we help people take up. Did I tell you all about the, federal grant that I applied for? Okay. Sorry, I'm talking again a lot. We applied for an IRA, urban forestry grant, IRA Inflation Reduction Act, just under $400,000. It's a 50-50 match. So we would need, the city would need to allocate that funding in the 2025-26 budget. That would pay for urban forester salary and benefits, which is another thing in the urban forestry management plan. It would also fund those incentive programs, especially geared towards low and moderate income folks, including tree assessment assistance for low and moderate income folks to actually have tree assessments done on their property so that they know what needs to be done, what the risks are, a cost share or a grant, a small grant for low and moderate income folks that have street trees that are not city owned and maintained, but the onus is on them to maintain, but they might not be able to afford it. So we would have a chunk of money if awarded this grant to hire a contractor to maintain those trees for people that can't afford to. A tree giveaway program for low and moderate income, but also other areas of the city to try and work on plant where this work says that we should, and give away trees, compost, watering bags, mulch, the things that people would need. Also some heat sensors to be placed around the city so that we can measure baseline versus when we actually do make some progress on canopy equity. So that, I won't know if we were awarded that until like probably November. The last word I got from DNR of when we might hear. It's a federal grant. We would still need to come up with the match in the following budget, but that could pay for half of an urban forester for 5 years. It's a 5-year grant.
And when's this deliverable due for the state?
This one, this DNR grant, April 20th is when I have to turn in my final report. It's a very quick turnaround time.
The analysis, tree inventory analysis, that's the 1C. Is there a description of the analysis that you'll receive?
2A? Is it 2A?
No, 1C.
One C. Brain fart. Question again, please.
What's included in the analysis, in that analysis?
Well, the point-based, the sample-based approach. So how did they do their sampling to determine this many trees in this space?
So is anyone doing an analysis on the inventory?
Getting the inventory, we're identifying potential planting areas and the maintenance that's needed, but not like a species makeup or anything like of that matter. That wasn't explicitly an action in the plan, so I didn't know to include it.
But it'll be in Excel, it'll be in an Excel format, right? So it could be done.
Yes, it can be done. I'm probably not the best person to do it, as you all probably have realized by now, not a forester in any way. But
Wish you could cross-reference that with your recommended street tree inventory, all those categories.
Yeah. And it might be,
a lot more native.
it might be an intern opportunity for someone who's interested in biostatistics.
Yep, and so my department is moving to South Puget Sound Community College in the coming months. We're hoping to develop a good internship program with them, as well as my already established internship program with Evergreen. So hopefully we have a lot of interns to do a lot of work soon. With Evergreen, Evergreen's Center for Climate Action and Policy pays the interns for us, which is very advantageous to us. But yes, there's no shortage of projects for interns.
I might have missed your statement. Did you say who's doing this work?
I don't know
No,
if I can say yet.
Disclosing that yet.
Yeah,
I'm not 100%, in Florida, I wouldn't be able to tell you yet, so I'm just,
but we will at some point because we knew who did the last grant work.
Yeah.
And it's public record.
yeah, I mean, you can ask for my emails and you would know. I just don't know if I'm allowed to say it yet or not, I don't know.
I think
It's been
contract.
awarded,
I can tell you,
it's been awarded, but it hasn't been public.
we haven't executed a contract yet. We had one bidder, so,
So maybe at the next meeting we'll know.
I mean, I know, but hopefully we'll have a I'll give you another grant contract, another contract.
When are they starting?
Soon as possible, because we have to have it all completed and, final report to DNR April 20th. We clicked the box on the application that we were willing to accept federal money, and I didn't know that was gonna mean we had a shorter time. But I'm happy that we get to accomplish 6 actions from the Urban Forestry Management Plan between now and April, so.
Ecosystem. Is it the same vendor we had last time?
No.
That's the end of my 20 questions.
I'm really done talking now. Until item 10. I'm sorry.
All right, well, I guess we're moving forward with the heritage tree. Was that nominated by Jim?
Yes.
Yes. It's my understanding is that it's been approved by the council? We need to approve it? Yeah.
Heritage Tree? Oh, you all approve it first and then it goes to council.
Okay, so
Or do you recommend that it goes to city council?
we now have a report from the consultant, the arborist, which we didn't have before. Okay, and that's why you're bringing it to us now.
The process, has been that, someone nominates the tree. I reach out to the urban forester to confirm the species, the size, and get a general note. Then it comes to you all for your discussion, and if you want to, recommend to city council that they approve, then I put it on the consent agenda for the next, city council meeting, which I think is September. But as soon as I can get it on the next agenda, it goes on their consent agenda. They vote on it as they will, and that's the process.
So the only, Alyssa mentioned that the consultant confirms the genus and does some analysis of the quality of the tree, which they've done. We disagree on the species, so I'll get in touch with the arborist and see why he thinks it's a saucer magnolia. So I think we need to clarify that before it goes to council. But I think his report is good, other than the species, and he thinks it's an ideal specimen. As I mentioned in the nomination, it may be the largest of this species that I identified in the world, at least on this database called the Monumental Trees Database. So if we can agree on species, I would submit that data to this worldwide database for entry as the largest Japanese big leaf maple in the world. Magnolia, sorry. I said maple. Oops.
Lots of species confusion.
Okay, so are we just gonna shelve that until we get that clarified?
Well, I think that, you
Or
all
do we
can
just
make
wanna-
a recommendation to council to, I mean, if it wasn't the species that you think it is, would you still like to recommend it as a heritage tree? Or only because if not, then, you can wait until you hear back, or you can nominate, you can recommend to the city council pending confirmation of the species and still move it forward so it doesn't have to come to the next meeting agenda and delay.
I'd suggest we do that, your latter suggestion.
So, recommend to city council pending confirmation of the species.
So moved. Yes, we need a second to
I'll second that.
say we approve of this.
I'll second that. So all those,
I guess my comment, the comment here is that it is not a native tree, it's exotic. And so do we feel comfortable saying that falls within the parameter of our heritage definition?
Do we have that
Should be in the
qualifier in our definition?
We say,
section of code. It doesn't specify that it has to be a native tree.
right,
Well,
And
and
that's in a rare
it's
tree.
historical, right? I think just given the
What?
fact that Tumwater is such a brewery, I mean, it's here because of the brewery. So I would think that
Yes.
would be historical in context.
Yeah.
we could say it's rare,
Yeah,
historical, it's a specimen, based on the size. So that's 3 of the criteria for heritage tree.
So why do we need to attach the caveat of pending speciation? I don't understand why it really matters.
If,
I get the value of getting it right, but it's not gonna, I don't see it changing my vote,
okay,
recommended or not. I guess I'm wondering what your,
if it's a, Suiliana, if it's just a, what's the other species, a common name?
saucer?
Saucer magnolia, then
Langiana.
it's not exciting. It's not rare, it's probably not large.
There's other 35-inch saucer magnolias?
I believe so.
In Tumwater? Okay.
It's a very common tree, and I don't see why he thought this was a saucer magnolia, because it doesn't look like one to me.
Gotcha. I guess I wasn't aware of any other of that size.
Usually saucer magnolias are multiple stems.
Mm-hmm.
They're, yeah. That's what you have on the Capitol grounds?
The saucer.
Yeah. And Brent agrees with me that it's not a saucer, although he hasn't personally looked at the tree.
We need that app, we'll just shine your tree ID app on the photo, and that'll be official.
okay.
So
we're
that's
gonna
my,
move
and
forward.
discussion, move to second.
It was seconded, right?
By Mike, I think. Did
Yeah.
you second it,
was
Mike?
seconded. Now we need to vote. No. All those in favor of approving the magnolia tree to go to council pending the species verification, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Say nay. Okay. So motion carries. So we'll send it to council pending verification of the species.
And, Jim, if you'd like, I can reach out to Kevin and do that legwork.
Okay. I need to talk to him about something else, so I can do it.
If file.
I'll do it and notify you.
Next item is the, draft meeting schedule.
Okay.
So, sorry for scaring everyone a couple months ago about asking if we could have double tree board meetings for multiple months, so that we could get business done, but now the WUI code, and the lack of the, joint meetings has made it so we don't need to do that. So I've readjusted this to reflect our Monday meetings. They're not joint meetings. I don't currently have anything on the agenda for the August 7th meeting. You can either tell me things that you want on the August 7th meeting. I did hear your call for having the intern present, or alternatively, we could not have an August 7th meeting. It is up to you all. You all can suggest agenda items if there's something that you'd like a report on or anything.
Jim, can you find another heritage tree by then?
Yes?
I mean, if we don't have anything on the agenda, I would be so moved to pass on it. And then just meet in September.
Correct.
And the interim report could be another month, right? Essentially.
The intern, the intern to come to present, it would be pending their availability.
This is intern from Texas.
They're currently in Texas,
Any chance they'd be back in town in September?
late September,
Or they could
maybe at the October meeting for sure.
virtually.
They can share virtually, and they would be back in the area by the October meeting.
Oh, well, there's more chances then.
Yeah.
Before you all decide on that, I did put the field trip to be potential planting areas for this year. Is that all right with you all?
Great.
Okay. We'd probably go with, Grant and Dave that you all met from from my department. We have a couple places where they have done planting, mostly willows and wetlands.
Ooh, that's exciting.
But other areas where we have in mind for those, stormwater
Nice.
related, plantings. So, I'll let them know to mark that day off for themselves, for this carbon sequestration white paper in October. I think we might have to have 2 meetings depending on if, for October, where we are with the WUI. It's required to be adopted by the end of October, so it could be that that gets late to November, in which case I'll need to reschedule our annual meeting with the department directors.
And who approves it?
The, what's it?
The WUI.
The WUI. Our city council would need to adopt it, as the ordinance.
And they usually meet before and after us, right?
Yeah.
In the month. So if they don't approve it before we meet again in October, we can't do these meetings?
Likely. Well, we likely can't do the 2 meetings for October, the work session
Yeah.
with Brad.
Joint meeting.
So that joint meeting, all future joint meetings are kind of pending Brad letting me know where we are with that.
If it's approved and the interpretation is, I don't know whether to say liberal or conservative, as conservative, I guess, as strict as you suggested could be, it seems like we kind of have to start over.
Brad's the project manager for those. We would definitely have to regroup at minimum. And we would likely need to, I don't want to speak for him, but it would be a good idea to reach out to the stakeholders that have been involved in the public meetings as well. And they all got the same email that you all got, minus the memo, today as well, being informed of the delay. He's the best person to speak to about exactly the nitty-gritty of the dates and details of that, because that also would require amendments to the contract with the consultants and doozy. So maybe October 2 meetings, maybe October 1 meeting. I know for sure that we have Allison coming from the Thurston Regional Planning Council to present on the carbon sequestration white paper. November is generally the month in which we meet with the department directors to check in on the implementation of the urban forestry management plan. But we can reschedule that if we need to. And December, I was going to bring a new meeting schedule, talk about the planting events after we've visited the planting areas. So like a schedule of when that would happen, or maybe one of them had happened by then. And by then, I'll have enough time to bring you a recommendation for those incentives and hopefully some funding for them too, fingers crossed. Would you all like to cancel the August 7th meeting?
Yes.
Would someone like to make a motion?
Are we gonna make a motion? I make a motion to cancel the August meeting. Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Okay. Motion carries. No August meeting for the Tumwater Tree. So the next meeting date will not be then, it'll be in September. I did notice, is this the new logo on the top of the agenda? for Tumwater?
It is.
Kind of like a tsunami is taking
Yeah.
out the brewery.
Oh, yeah, it's in the news, oh, wow.
Exactly.
Everyone has their own interpretation of what
Yeah.
kind of water it is.
All right,
Visible space.
right. Well, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting for tonight. All those in favor say aye.
Second,
Seconded?
aye.
Aye. All right, so moved. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone. I guess we'll see you in September.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
That was a record, an hour?
Yeah.